So in this video, I'm going to be telling you my personal top 5 favourite perks in Call of Duty Zombies. Now before we get into this video, I just want to say this is my personal opinion. This is no one else's opinion, just mine. If you don't agree with something, feel free to put it in the comment section below and actually put down your 5 perks that you would have as your top 5 worst perks of all time, 1 being the worst and 5 being the not so worst. But anyway, enjoy the video. So coming into number 5, we have a perk which is unbelievably underrated. The most underrated perk in my opinion. Now this perk is Tombstone. Tombstone in most people's list would come like the worst perk ever or the second most hated perk ever. But I honestly don't think it's that bad. It's the map that makes it useless and bad. Now essentially what Tombstone does is on multiplayer, so it isn't a multiplayer only perk, which some people hate it because of that reason, but it only really works on multiplayer. This would not really work on solo at all. Actually it wouldn't work on solo at all, but basically as soon as you've bled out, so if your teammate can't revive you and you bleed out, you've got 90 seconds as soon as you spawn in to go and collect a drop, the shape as a tombstone, but you've got to go and collect this drop, and if you get there in the 90 seconds, then you get all your weapons and perks back. So you basically restock on everything, which I think is brilliant. Now there is Infinite Warfare. I've got this like kind of bank system. It's very similar to that where you can get your stuff back. Obviously Infinite Warfare's not come out yet and I don't even know why I'm going on about it, but it'll be very similar to that where if you die you can go and get your stuff back. Now I think this is a really good idea. Think about it, if you're on transit round 20 and you die, hitting the box and stuff on transit, that's going to be very difficult. You may spawn like 8 miles away from the box and you've got to sprint all the way there. You may spawn in a place where there's no jug, nothing, and because it's such a big map, it's very hard to get set back up. It's very hard to get set up in the first place on the early rounds, but with Tombstone, you get everything back instantly, which is good, especially if you have something like the jet gun, which you just don't want to build again, because the jet gun building that is just terrible. But, like I was saying earlier, it's the map that makes a perk very underrated, because transit, it's transit. If you die at town, and then you spawn at Bus Depot, you've got 90 seconds to go and collect that drop from town. You're just not going to get there in time unless you have the bus, but then even then you've got to clutch it, and you probably won't even get there with the bus, to be fair. If it was on a map like Nuketown, a small map, Mob of the Dead, Origins, I think this would be a really good perk. I know Origins is quite big, but smaller maps, this would be a brilliant idea. 90 seconds in a small map, easy. And any map, to be fair, besides Transit. Transit is by far the biggest map of all time in Call of Duty Zombies, and it's the one perk which has a time limit on, is in the biggest map. It just makes no sense to me. Tombstone should be introduced. Like, I use Tombstone all the time in custom zombies. I think Tombstone's a very good perk, very good idea. That's why it's not lower down on the list, but because it was introduced in the wrong map, it's just very useless. So that's why Tombstone comes in at a number 5 spot. So coming into number 4, we have Mule Kick. Now Mule Kick is not a bad perk. A lot like Tombstone, it's on this list just because there's a lot of perks, and obviously I had to get some perks on the list, so it's not a bad perk whatsoever, and I'm not putting it on the list because it's a bad perk. I'm putting it on the list because it's a useless perk. Now this perk, essentially what it does is gives you an extra weapon slot. Normally you can only hold 2 weapons. If you get Mule Kick, you can hold 3 weapons. Now this is useless for a few reasons. One, if you're training and you've got 2 guns, I don't know, let's say you've got, on Black Ops 3 for example, you've got a gun with Dead Wire and you've got the Apothicon Servant. You get trapped, you try to get out your Apothicon Servant, but it gets out your 3rd weapon instead, or you double tap it to get out your other weapon and it gets out the wrong weapon. This is the thing with this perk. I know what I said didn't really make any sense, but what I'm trying to say is that you kind of lose the trace of where certain weapons are, and it gets confusing. So if you're in a tight situation, it can kill you, and it's 4,000 points. Now I know this doesn't really mean anything, but the perk is expensive for what it does, because it doesn't really do anything, and it's 4,000 points. It's the most expensive perk in Zombies, besides Widow's Wine, at the exact same amount. So being topped with the most expensive perk in Zombies of all time is just insane to me, and I don't think it should be worth this much. 1, the price. 2, it can kill you. I think it's more of a fun perk. I don't know, just say you went back to Black Ops 1 on Moon, for example. I wanted to use the Wave Gun, the Mustang and Salis, and the Galil. I would get Mule Kick so I could use more than one weapon. It's one of them guns that, if you want to use more than one gun, or more than 2 guns, then you could use Mule Kick. Mule Kick is one of them guns that I use on old Call of Duty, so I don't know, if I went back to Origins, for example, I would use Mule Kick. If I went back to Kino, I would use Mule Kick, and I would use Mule Kick on these maps so I can use multiple of the old weapons. In truth, and I know a lot of people do agree with me on this, that Mule Kick is just useless and it just doesn't do anything, so that's why Mule Kick comes in at our number 4 spot. So coming into number 3, and I'm not really going to explain this, we have Double Tap 1.0. Not Double Tap 2.0, Double Tap 2.0 is a very good perk, and it would probably come in my top 5 perks, to be fair. It's a very good perk, but Double Tap 1.0, the one from Black Ops 1 and World at War, is really bad. It's not as bad as the last two. The last two perks I'll be going on about are the worst by far, and I had a really hard time picking between them both, but both of them are as bad as each other. But this perk is not that bad. Number 3, it's quite similar to Mule Kick and Tombstone, where it's not the worst perk ever, but it's not useful at all. Now, basically what this does is it makes your gun fire faster, makes the fire rate on your gun faster. Now, think about it this way. If you have the PPSH, for example, which has got a fast fire rate already, if you shoot it, it's wasting ammo. You basically just waste ammo with this gun. You are firing with double tap 2.0, you fire 2 bullets every one shot, or every 1 bullet, sorry, is as strong as 2 bullets. Whereas with double tap 1.0, instead of every 1 bullet being as strong as 2 bullets, it just fires the gun faster, so thus wasting more ammo. Now, yes, if you're in a tight situation, it can kill zombies faster, so it can be like a clutch kind of perk, and it can help you in certain situations, but you will be buying ammo every 10 seconds, and if you get a box weapon that you can't buy ammo for, then you're pretty much screwed. Double tap 1.0 just wastes ammo. That's the only bad thing about it, really. I can't really explain it that much in depth. Essentially, all it does is waste ammo, but that's why double tap 1.0 comes in at our number 3 spot. So the 2 perks I'm going to be going on about now are in no particular order. I could not decide between them both. So basically, they're both in the number 1 spot, because obviously it's a top 5. I need one in the number 2 spot and one in the number 1 spot. I just put them in the number 1 or number 2 spot, but both of these perks are as bad as each other. Number 1, I did come to the conclusion that number 1 may be a little bit worse, but both of them are unbelievably bad, and yeah, prepare yourselves. Coming into number 2, we have Deadshot. Now, Deadshot, I don't even know where to start with this perk. Deadshot is unbelievably useless. Straight away, I'm not even going to go on about why I think it's useless. You should know why it's useless. All I'm going to say about this perk is when you buy it, it just makes you lock onto the head automatically. When you aim on a zombie, instead of auto-aiming onto its chest, it aims onto its head. Ridiculous. Me personally, I don't even play with auto-aim on, so it doesn't really affect me that much. Although, if I don't play with auto-aim, it probably affects me more, and it makes me much worse at zombies. Deadshot does. But if you play with auto-aim, it doesn't really make a difference. Instead of aiming for the chest, it's the head. And if you're that bad at zombies that you cannot aim shoot a zombie in the head, you shouldn't be playing zombies. I'm just going to put it out there now. You should not be playing zombies if you cannot hit a zombie in the head. Deadshot is unbelievably useless, and I can't really explain why it's bad. It's just bad. You need to use this perk for yourself to realise how bad it is. If you've not played zombies before, my explanation probably makes no sense. You're probably like, well, it aims on the head. It's going to kill them faster. That is true, but you can aim on the head yourself. It's easy. I don't even use aim assist at all, but I find it easier without this perk. It's just ridiculous, and that's why this comes in at number 2. So coming into our number 1 spot, we have Who's Who. Now, just like Deadshot, this perk is unbelievably useless, but to be honest, it's probably worse than Deadshot. I'm going to be 100% honest. This perk is so unbelievably useless. It is the definition of useless, this perk. Who's Who is just... oh my god, where do I start? Now, if you're not a fan of zombies, or if you've not really played zombies, you will not know what Who's Who is. And it's very hard to explain, but essentially what it does is when you buy it and you go down, you spawn in as a ghost version of yourself, and you've got to try to revive yourself. Now, this is very similar to Quick Revive, where if you go down, it revives you back up. But Quick Revive instantly revives you, and you've got a second chance. What Who's Who does is turns you into a ghost with just an M1911. You don't get any good guns, nothing like that. You have the M1911. It's basically a shit Afterlife, is what Who's Who is. You've got Afterlife, but you've not got Afterlife, if that makes any sense whatsoever. You have an M1911, and the zombies can still attack you. So, essentially, it's just like you've got the same weaponry that you would on round 1, but there's like 80 zombies coming at you, trying to attack you, and you've got to try to revive yourself. It's just... imagine you have no perks, okay? Your teammate goes down on the other side of the map, and you've got to run to him, and there's 80 zombies chasing you. That's what Who's Who is. Who's Who is a chore. Who's Who is not good whatsoever. Who's Who is just... and I'm going to have gameplay of it on screen now, because what I said about it, if you've not played zombies before, you probably don't even know what Who's Who is, and my explanation is terrible. So I'm going to have gameplay of it on screen now, but it is just unbelievably stupid. For the early rounds, yes. Now, people have made challenges with this perk. They've had the Who's Who only challenge, where you're not allowed to buy Quick Revive, you're only allowed to use Who's Who. That's how bad this perk is. It's a challenge to buy it. This perk is terrible, and for its price, to be honest, it's not even that expensive, but it's just the perk itself, and that's why this perk comes in at number 1. It's just ridiculous, and it's the definition of useless. It's just, it melts my brain. And that's going to conclude it for my top 5 worst perks of all time. If you would like the video, that would be a really big help, and why not subscribe? It's free, you don't have to do anything for it, just click a big red button at the bottom of the screen. It takes no time at all, and yeah, it'd be really appreciated. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.